The morning sun slanted through the blinds of the Taylor household, scattering golden stripes across the living room. Amanda Taylor sipped her coffee with a sense of quiet dissatisfaction. From the outside, their life in suburban Ohio looked perfect. Well-manicured lawns, a white picket fence, a reliable SUV in the driveway. Inside, however, Amanda felt trapped in a pattern that had grown increasingly suffocating. Her husband, Daniel, was a devoted man, practical and dependable, the kind of person everyone admired for stability. Yet, that very stability had become a cage, and Amanda felt herself yearning for something unpredictable, something forbidden. Daniel had left early for his office job at a law firm downtown, leaving Amanda to the routine of laundry, emails, and the occasional call from friends. She moved through motions, her mind wandering toward thoughts she could hardly admit aloud. She had met someone at her yoga class a few weeks ago, a man named Marcus, whose charisma and intensity contrasted sharply with Daniel's calm predictability. Amanda knew the danger of indulging in these thoughts, yet she couldn't help herself. Each text message from Marcus seemed to pull her further into a world of temptation she had only glimpsed in the back of her mind before. By midday, Amanda found herself staring out the kitchen window at the neighborhood children playing on the street, her hands idle on the counter. Her phone buzzed. It was Marcus. Lunch? Just the two of us. Amanda's heart raced. She hesitated, knowing this would be the first step across a line she had promised herself she would never cross. The thought of meeting him somewhere quiet, somewhere secluded, excited and terrified her in equal measure. She made an excuse in her head, rationalizing it as harmless, a lunch, a conversation. But deep down, she knew it would never stay that innocent. The anticipation gnawed at her as she prepared to leave the house. Her reflection in the mirror startled her. Amanda Taylor, a woman who had once been proud of her loyalty and dedication, now caught in a growing web of desire and secrecy. Driving through the winding suburban streets toward downtown, she felt the thrill of the unknown mingle with guilt. She rehearsed casual phrases, innocent laughs, the kind of conversation that would mask the tension brewing underneath. When she finally saw Marcus sitting outside the cafe, the world seemed to narrow to him alone. He smiled, and Amanda felt a shiver she hadn't experienced in years. This was the beginning, she realized. The first chapter of a story that could destroy everything she had built, or perhaps awaken something in her she had long buried. Amanda sat down, heart pounding, and the weight of her secret pressed down on her like an invisible storm. The suburban calm of Ohio seemed a distant illusion now. Here, in this small cafe, temptation had a face, and it was impossible to ignore. Amanda tried to steady her breathing as she sat across from Marcus at the small cafe table. The murmur of voices and the clinking of cutlery faded into the background as his eyes locked onto hers. He leaned forward, his voice low and warm. "I'm glad you came," he said, the corners of his mouth lifting in a smile that felt dangerous, like fire disguised as sunlight. She forced herself to smile back, fingers curling nervously around her water glass. "It's just lunch," she reminded herself silently. Yet, the way Marcus looked at her made it clear he saw it as much more. Conversation flowed effortlessly, drifting from jokes about yoga instructors to confessions about how unfulfilled they sometimes felt in their daily routines. Amanda found herself saying things she had never admitted to Daniel. Her restlessness, her craving for adventure, the loneliness that crept in during long evenings when Daniel worked late. Marcus listened intently, his hand brushing hers on the table as if by accident. The touch sent a jolt of electricity through her, and Amanda realized how starved she had been for this kind of attention. Daniel was kind, yes, but his love was practical, predictable. With Marcus, everything felt alive, urgent, dangerous. When the lunch ended, Marcus stood and leaned close to her ear as they walked out. "You don't have to keep pretending you're happy," he whispered. The words lodged themselves deep inside her chest. Amanda felt the ground shift beneath her as she slid into her car. Her reflection in the rearview mirror showed flushed cheeks and wide eyes, a woman on the brink of a choice she couldn't undo. That night, Daniel came home late as usual. He kissed her cheek absent-mindedly, dropped his briefcase by the door, and asked about dinner. Amanda moved around the kitchen in silence, her mind replaying Marcus's words over and over. She noticed, with startling clarity, the routine of it all. Daniel scrolling through emails on his phone, his tired face illuminated by the screen, while she set the table. It wasn't that he didn't love her, it was that his love had become a habit, something automatic and unexamined. Later, lying awake beside him, Amanda stared at the ceiling in the dark. Guilt pressed down on her, heavy and suffocating. But beneath it lay a pulse of excitement that refused to fade. She reached for her phone and typed out a message she told herself she wouldn't send. "When can I see you again?" Her finger hovered over the send button, heart hammering in her chest. For a moment, she considered deleting it, erasing the evidence of her weakness. But then, almost against her will, her thumb pressed down. The message was gone, carried into the digital void, and Amanda closed her eyes, her body trembling with both fear and exhilaration. This wasn't just lunch anymore. It was the opening of a door that could never be shut. She had crossed the threshold, and there was no going back. The days that followed blurred together, each one heavy with anticipation. Amanda found herself checking her phone constantly, her pulse quickening at every buzz. Marcus replied to her late-night message almost immediately. "Tomorrow, same cafe, but let's not stop there." His words were short, but they carried a weight Amanda could feel in her bones. When the next day arrived, she dressed with more care than usual, choosing a fitted blouse and applying makeup she hadn't worn in years. As she drove toward their meeting place, the rational part of her screamed warnings. This was reckless, dangerous, unfair to Daniel. Yet her heart raced with the thrill of it all. At the cafe, Marcus was waiting, his smile sharper than before. They exchanged pleasantries, but this time the small talk lasted only minutes before Marcus leaned in, lowering his voice. "Come with me," he said simply, his eyes burning into hers. Amanda's breath caught, and she nodded, surprising even herself. They left together, the sunlight outside too bright, the air too heavy. Marcus led her a few blocks away to a small boutique hotel tucked between office buildings. Amanda hesitated at the entrance, her mind a storm of guilt and desire. She knew that stepping inside would mean stepping fully into betrayal. Marcus noticed her pause and touched her hand gently. "You don't have to if you don't want to," he murmured. But Amanda did want to. That was the problem. She followed him inside. The quiet hum of the lobby and the smell of polish were making the moment feel unreal, like a dream she couldn't wake from. In the room, when the door clicked shut behind them, Amanda felt the weight of her choice settle on her shoulders. Yet, when Marcus kissed her, all hesitation melted away. Hours later, Amanda stared at the ceiling of the hotel room, her body still trembling. Marcus lay beside her, casually tracing circles on her arm. The guilt was sharp, cutting to the haze of pleasure, but beneath it was something intoxicating. For the first time in years, she felt seen, desired, alive. When she finally left the hotel, the world looked different. The streets seemed louder, the air heavier, as if everything around her knew the secret she carried now. Driving home, Amanda rehearsed excuses for Daniel. She told herself it would be a one-time thing, a moment of weakness she could bury and forget. But as she walked to the front door, Daniel greeted her with his usual distracted smile, asking nothing of where she had been. The ease with which she slipped back into routine frightened her. It was too simple to lie, too simple to hide. And when she checked her phone later that evening, there was already a new message from Marcus. "Next time, my place." Amanda stared at the screen, torn between fear and longing. She had crossed the line, and she knew she couldn't stop now. Each step deeper into this affair was both a betrayal and a liberation, and Amanda couldn't yet decide which feeling would consume her first. Amanda had told herself the first time would be the last. But weeks later, the affair was no longer a secret she stumbled into. It was a life she chose. Every Thursday afternoon, when Daniel was buried in work and unlikely to notice her absence, Amanda disappeared into Marcus's apartment on the east side of town. The apartment was small but full of character. Shelves stacked with books, a record player that hummed with jazz, a faint smell of cedar and coffee. It was nothing like the pristine, carefully curated rooms of her suburban home. Here, Amanda felt unshackled. She laughed louder, spoke more freely, allowed herself to be touched in ways she hadn't allowed for years. Marcus brought out a side of her she thought had died long ago. But with each visit, the risk grew. She became more careful with her phone, deleting messages, rehearsing alibis. Sometimes, when she returned home and Daniel asked about her day, Amanda would feel her chest tighten, terrified that he could see through her. But Daniel never pressed, never questioned. He trusted her completely, and that trust cut deeper than any accusation ever could. One night, while she stood in Marcus's apartment pulling on her coat, Marcus stepped behind her, sliding his arms around her waist. "You don't belong in that picture-perfect cage," he whispered against her ear. "You belong here with me." Amanda froze, staring at her reflection in the mirror. For a split second, she saw herself not as Daniel's wife, not as a suburban mother figure her neighbors admired, but as a woman leading two lives, one rooted in comfort and lies, the other in passion and risk. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. "Marcus," she said carefully, "I can't just walk away from everything. My marriage, my home." Her voice faltered. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Do you even want to stay with him? Or is it just easier to pretend?" The question lingered in Amanda's mind long after she left. Driving back to the quiet streets, the manicured lawns glowing under the streetlights, she realized how fragile her world had become. Each kiss, each lie, each stolen hour was a crack in the foundation of her marriage. And sooner or later, foundations gave way. That night, lie beside Daniel, Amanda felt the weight of Marcus's words pressing down on her. Daniel was sound asleep, his steady breathing a reminder of the safety he had always provided. But Amanda couldn't sleep. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. "Marcus again. You know where you belong." She turned the screen face down, her heart racing. For the first time, she wondered if her secret life could remain hidden forever, or if the storm she created was already gathering, waiting to tear her perfect suburban world apart. Daniel Taylor wasn't a man easily given to suspicion. For most of their marriage, he had trusted Amanda without hesitation, never imagining she could betray him. But lately, something about her had changed, and though he couldn't quite put his finger on it, the unease grew with each passing day. It started with small details. Her phone always face down on the table, her sudden insistence on afternoon errands, and the way she seemed distracted during dinner, smiling faintly at thoughts she never shared. At first, Daniel dismissed it as stress, maybe even boredom. He worked long hours, and perhaps Amanda just needed more excitement than their quiet suburban routine could offer. But then came the lies. He caught them in fragments, a story about meeting a friend that didn't quite add up, a receipt for a cafe she claimed not to have visited. Daniel told himself he was imagining things, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. One evening, Amanda came home later than usual, flushed and nervous. She claimed she had been stuck in traffic after yoga class, but Daniel noticed her hair was slightly disheveled, her blouse wrinkled. When he asked a casual question about the class, her answer stumbled. Daniel's chest tightened. For the first time, he allowed himself to wonder, was there someone else? That night, he lay awake while Amanda slept beside him, her breathing steady and calm. He studied her profile in the dim light, searching for the woman he had married, the woman he had built his life around. She looked the same, but something in her had shifted, as though a part of her lived in a world he could no longer reach. Meanwhile, Amanda sensed his unease. She noticed the way Daniel's eyes lingered on her, sharper, questioning. When he asked about her day, his tone was too casual, his smile too tight. The realization that he might be growing suspicious filled her with dread. Yet instead of pulling back from Marcus, she found herself drawn even closer. The more fragile her marriage became, the more intoxicating her afternoons with Marcus felt. Marcus, for his part, encouraged the distance. "He doesn't see you the way I do," he told her one afternoon, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "He takes you for granted. Let him suspect. What can he really do? You deserve more than half a life." Amanda wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come. Deep down, she feared Marcus was right. Still, guilt gnawed at her. At dinner, she laughed at Daniel's stories and pretended everything was normal, all while wondering if he could hear the tremor in her voice. Their home, once a safe haven, now felt like a stage set for lies. And Daniel, though he said nothing, had already decided he needed to know the truth. Daniel had always believed honesty was the foundation of their marriage. But now, as he watched Amanda move around the kitchen with that forced brightness in her voice, he knew something was broken. She wasn't the same woman he had fallen in love with. At least, not entirely. And if there was another man, he needed to know for certain. He didn't confront her right away. Daniel wasn't impulsive. Years as an attorney had taught him patience, the importance of evidence over suspicion. So he began quietly, paying closer attention. He noted the times she left the house, the excuses she offered, the patterns that didn't add up. One Thursday afternoon, when Amanda said she was headed to yoga, Daniel left work early. His heart pounded as he parked his car down the street from the studio, waiting. Minutes stretched into an hour, but Amanda never appeared. Instead, he watched as she pulled up in her SUV, parked briefly, then walked quickly in the opposite direction, toward the busier downtown streets. Daniel's stomach tightened. He started his car and followed at a cautious distance. Amanda walked with purpose, her head tilted down as if she were hiding from a world. He trailed her for several blocks until she disappeared into the entrance of a mid-rise apartment building. Daniel sat frozen in his car, staring at the door she had just passed through. He knew in that moment what it meant. And yet, he needed proof. Undeniable proof. The following week, he took it further. He checked her phone when she left it unattended in the bathroom. It was spotless, too spotless. Entire message threads were missing. The careful erasure spoke louder than any incriminating text could. At night, Daniel lay awake beside her, rehearsing what he might say, how he might confront her. But every time he looked at Amanda's face in the dim light, he faltered. He loved her, despite everything. Part of him prayed he was wrong, that there was some innocent explanation. Another part of him, darker and sharper, demanded the truth at any cost. Meanwhile, Amanda felt the pressure mounting. She noticed Daniel's glances, too watchful, too curious. Once, she caught him staring at her when he thought she wasn't looking, his expression unreadable. Fear prickled at her skin, but so did a strange relief. Maybe the secret was too heavy to carry forever. Marcus, however, dismissed her worries. "Let him suspect," he said. "He won't do anything. He's too comfortable. He needs you more than you need him." But Amanda wasn't so sure anymore. Daniel was changing. His silence had weight. His questions felt like traps, and every lie she told landed heavier than the last. Daniel was no longer just a husband. He had become something else, an investigator in his own home, waiting for the right moment to bring the truth into the light. For weeks, Daniel had lived in the quiet torture of suspicion. Every time Amanda smiled at him, he wondered whose face she saw in her mind. Every time she claimed to be running errands, he wondered whose arm she was running to. The not knowing gnawed at him more than betrayal itself. He decided he couldn't live in the gray area anymore. He needed certainty, no matter how painful. On a Thursday afternoon, Daniel left the office early again. He followed Amanda's SUV as it wound its way out of the suburbs and into the city. She parked 2 blocks from the same apartment building he had seen before. This time, Daniel didn't stop at a distance. He parked on the corner, waited until she disappeared inside, then crossed the street. His pulse thundered in his ears as he approached the entrance. A delivery man exited the building, holding the door long enough for Daniel to slip inside unnoticed. The lobby smelled faintly of old carpet and cleaning chemicals. Daniel scanned the mailboxes, searching for a name that might match the ghost in his imagination. One label stood out, Marcus D. His chest tightened. He climbed the stairs slowly, every step heavier than the last, until he reached the 3rd floor. Apartment 3B. He stood outside the door, frozen, listening. At first there was silence. Then, faintly, laughter. Amanda's laughter. It sliced through him like a knife. For a moment, Daniel almost knocked, almost burst through the door to end the charade right then and there. But instead, his training as a lawyer pulled him back. Proof. He needed proof. With trembling hands, he pulled out his phone and snapped a picture of the apartment number. Then he stepped back down the hall, retreating before his emotions overpowered his reason. Later that night, when Amanda returned home, Daniel noticed a glow on her face, the lingering warmth in her voice. She looked alive in a way she hadn't in years, and it broke him. She slipped into the kitchen, humming softly, while Daniel sat on the couch, staring at the photo he had taken. The evidence wasn't just in the picture. It was in her eyes, her movements, her silence. Still, he wanted more. Something undeniable. Something she couldn't lie her way out of. The next week, Daniel hired a private investigator, a man he knew through work. Within days, the photos came back. Amanda and Marcus together on the street, their hands entwined, their bodies close in ways no friendship could explain. Another photo showed them kissing in broad daylight outside his apartment. Daniel stared at the images until his vision blurred. There it was, the truth. Cold, hard, irrefutable. His wife was unfaithful. That night, when Amanda climbed into bed beside him, Daniel didn't move. He lay stiff as stone, the photos still on his phone in the drawer of his nightstand. He wondered if she could hear the silence between them. Thick, heavy, suffocating. He had the proof now. The only question that remained was what he would do with it. The silence between Amanda and Daniel had grown unbearable. Each dinner, each evening spent in the same house, felt like a performance neither of them could sustain much longer. Daniel carried the truth in his pocket, like a loaded weapon, waiting for the moment to use it. Amanda, though unaware of the photos, sensed a shift in him. His eyes no longer looked at her with trust, but with calculation. One Friday night, the dam finally broke. Amanda was clearing the table when Daniel set his phone down in front of her. The screen was lit, displaying a photo, her and Marcus, their lips pressed together outside his apartment. The plate slipped from Amanda's hands, shattering against the floor. The sound echoed through the kitchen like a gunshot. Her face drained of color as she looked at the image, then at Daniel, whose expression was calm but cold, carved in stone. "How long?" he asked quietly. No anger, no raised voice, just the sharpness of a man who had already judged a crime, needing only the confession. Amanda's throat tightened. Words stumbled in her chest, tangled in fear and shame. "Daniel, How?" "Long." Her legs felt weak as she gripped the back of the chair. "A few months," she whispered. The truth sounded foreign on her tongue, but there was no hiding now. Daniel nodded once, as if confirming a verdict he already knew. He leaned back, folding his arms. "I gave you my trust. I built a life with you, and you threw it away for him." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't about him. It was about me. I felt invisible. You felt bored." Daniel cut in, his voice rising for the first time. "So you destroyed us for excitement?" She flinched at his words, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I never wanted to hurt you." Daniel's laugh was hollow, bitter. "You didn't mean for it to happen, but you made it happen. Over and over." He pointed at the phone. "Do you even realize what you've done? To me? To our marriage?" Amanda tried to reach for his hand, but he pulled away. The distance between them felt like a canyon now, impossible to cross. "Daniel, please. I still love you." He stared at her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he stood, his chair scraping harshly against the floor. "Love doesn't look like this," he said, his voice low but sharp. "Love doesn't sneak around. Love doesn't lie." Amanda sobbed, sinking into the chair as Daniel walked toward the stairs. At the bottom step, he turned once more, his expression weary, broken. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Amanda, and I don't know if I even want to." The house was silent again as he climbed upstairs, leaving Amanda alone in the kitchen with the shattered plate at her feet and the wreckage of their marriage pressing down on her chest. For the first time, she realized the affair hadn't given her freedom. It had only chained her to a future filled with loss. And there, in the stillness of her perfect suburban home, Amanda understood. Some betrayals could never be undone.